Welcome back. In chapter 2, where we left off, Hazel, a cactus wren, had just been kidnapped by Forepaw and Bouse. Forepaw is a prairie dog, and Bouse is a javelina. And they had just sent a hawk named Eloy off to deliver a letter. And now we get to chapter 3, called The Letter. In the afternoon, the market vendors began to pack up their wares and dismantle their tents. Olivine slumped against the table with her face propped in her wing. She frowned. She had only sold 3 jars. 3! Part of her wanted to cry. "Don't be upset," said Rooks. "Today wasn't the best day for sales. But don't forget, I have that buyer in the canyons. I'll ship the rest of the jars tonight. I'm sure they'll sell there." Olivine stiffened her chin and helped Rooks pack up the many jars into wooden crates. Then they loaded them into the back of his motorized wagon. "Go home and have a nice supper," Rooks said, climbing onto the bench. She nodded. He started up the motor. The tailpipe coughed up a gray fume. Then he turned the wagon for the neighboring wash called Crooked Basin, where he lived. Setting out for home, Olivine tugged the handcart along. Inside was the parcel from Hazel and the new bag, which held the few coins she had earned. Not the best purchase for a time like this, she thought, looking at the bag. She hadn't expected sales to be so dismal. In her head, she began to make tabulations. They did not come out in her favor. At last, she approached her burrow. She fought off the nagging thought that it may not be her burrow for much longer. Please, 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 she thought, let the jars sell in the canyons. Tired and glum, she traipsed beneath the canopy of the creosote bush with her head hanging. "I need a nap," she thought as she took out her key. She held it up to the doorknob but stopped. The door was ajar. Worse, it was hanging off its hinges. Olivine stood stunned. Puzzled, she pressed against the wood. The door creaked open. She stepped inside and gasped, greeted by a devastating scene. The burrow was a disaster. The handcart banged as she raced down the steps. She surveyed the room in horror. The pictures on the walls hung askew. Her lace doilies lay crumpled beside her overturned armchair, and her wooden hutch had been toppled. Glass shards, her dishes, littered the floor. Olivine held a wing to her beak. "Someone broke into my burrow," she realized. But why? Who would do such a thing? A wave of terror crashed over her as she stood in the middle of the mayhem. What if whoever did this to my lovely home is still lurking about? Her eyes darted around the room, at the icebox, at the hutch, and then at the loft. Bang, bang, bang! Olivine screamed in fright and stumbled backward over the armchair. Breathless, she peeked out. Someone was at the door. She jumped to her feet and bulleted up the steps. "Yes, hello," she said, coming to the threshold. Again, there was no one there. At her feet was an envelope. She snatched it up and slammed the off-kilter door shut as best she could. In the kitchen, she grabbed a butter knife and tore open the envelope. She pulled out a sheet of paper. Wings all a-tremble, she unfolded it and found it was a note from Hazel, written in a desperate hand. It read, "Olivine, I've been kidnapped. You have to help me. I sent you a map. You must bring it to Redwall to the Grandview guest house. There are some very bad critters involved. If you don't bring it right away, they'll do something terrible to me. Hurry, Hazel." Olivine stared at the letter in disbelief. She reread it. In a storm of brown paper, Olivine ripped open the parcel and dug out a hat, a magnet, and a piece of turquoise. Finally, she came to the yellowed map. Letting the box fall, she opened it and stared at the drawing of the canyons. "Reptile Rock," she read aloud, tracing her wing over a scribble of writing. She spotted a bold X. This can't be what I think it is, she thought, but her mind shouted, "Treasure map." She pressed her wings to her temples, trying to make sense of things. Some horrible animals are going to hurt Hazel unless they get this treasure map? How awful. I must go to Redwall right away, she thought. Then she swayed. Redwall? She had never even left the washes. How could she go to Redwall? Olivine pressed the map against her chest. She didn't want to see it anymore. "Oh, Hazel," she murmured to herself. "What's happened?" But there was no time to waste. She pulled on the blue bag, stuffed the map inside, and raced up the steps. At the top of the stairs, she stole a glimpse of her home. It pained her to see it in such a state. Turning away, she closed the damaged door. As she dashed down the gravel wash, Olivine realized she didn't know how to get to Redwall. All she knew was that when critters went to the canyons, they took the riverboat upstream. First things first, she decided. I need to get to the river. Rooks, she thought out loud. He would be heading to the river that afternoon to drop off the crates. She had to get to him before he left, or she would miss the boat. And that is the end of chapter 3. If you're interested, I will leave a link in the description to the book on Amazon. It's available there in print. See you next time for chapter 4.